Last time we've met, we were able to successfully include all required libraries to our project, but all of those are quite useless without proper configuration. And this is exactly what we will do in this video. Sometimes the configuration issues turns into real science and introduce difficult to find and resolve issues like incompatible versions of libraries and other issues we will have to deal with. So it's okay if we will not succeed from the first attempt, then we will resolve our issues on the fly. So relax and let's get started. The Java web application bootup starts from the reading the web application descriptor file, which is web.xml. Let's go to it and open. A lot of things and configurations we are missing here right now. So we need to tell the Tomcat application server how to act on this particular application. I will add the configurations one by one and try to describe meaning of each. I am not quite confident at all of them, and I do not have to, at least because one exact reason. I did not have any reasons yet to configure it differently, so I just keep it default common project configuration. So don't let it bother you until you really need to use and configure it for your exact needs. And this is not the common task you will be required to do at your job, so don't panic. Also, these configurations are performed once when the project starts, and most likely will be involved into a project which already has all these things configured and ready to play. So and most likely this will be done by some system architect. Yeah. But because we are doing our own project alone, we need to configure and to do it. But once you get done with the configuration, you will get a powerful platform for developing large enterprise applications with the high level of data precision. So which is currently our common choice for insurance, banking, government, military, science, and even space exploration. So that's a kind of motivation for you. Okay, what we have here, we have a very minimalistic configuration. We have display name and the name of our application and one welcome file that will be loaded on the first access to our application root. The first thing that we will do, we will configure the main context parameters that will hold some values for our application. I already have prepared the parameters. I will copy it one by one from the buffer and try to explain the meaning of it. So the first one is the param with name context config location, and that is the main Spring framework configuration file. That will hold all further configurations, which include Spring configurations, and also will include the Spring Java Bean definitions. So this file will be very important in our application. The next param is and that is the file extensions that will hold our Java Surfaces views. The next one. This one enables the development mode to the Facelets, and that will help with some debugging, I guess, and introduce some more features for development. So let's keep it true. Next. This is also is related to the development mode that makes the Facelets refresh period to the configured in the value. In our case, 1 second. I've never used this feature, I guess, but I guess that's a very handy way, and probably we would like to use it. So we'll configure it later if we, depending on our needs. That is all for params by now. The next thing we must configure is the required Spring servlets and filters, as well as some listeners. Let's proceed with the listeners, and only one listener by now will be configured in our web.xml file, and that is context loader listener, which is Spring listener class that is responsible for context loading. Yeah, let's go to the servlets. And now I'm pasting in the servlet declarations with the mapping. So the first one is the resources servlet, which I guess is responsible for some resources resolving and the proper mapping for it. The next one, servlet, is more important, and that will be Spring Dispatcher servlet, which is very important and clever servlet implementation by Spring, which handles all the incoming and outgoing requests and of course responses to the and from application, and then resolves them to the correct modules and services. So you see, if even if we are working with the Spring Java application, the Spring itself still use the servlets in the inside the engine and operations. So remember this. This is a entry point to the Spring Webflow Java web application. So I guess I do not have to describe the all stuff going here. It's just basically servlet is the servlet name, servlet class implementation, and some initialization parameters. We put here the context config location, which is our application context XML file, and by empty param value we point to the root folder, and this servlet is loaded on the application startup by Tomcat. So yeah, I forgot the mapping for this servlet. I will copy the mapping, and here's the mapping coming, and the mapping just says that to access this servlet we define here, we will have to type in this URL to get into the application starting point. You can type here I guess everything you want. This is just short and easy to read application, and by including this this name and following by any flow, we will all the requests and responses will go through the dispatcher servlet. Okay, let's go forward. This is another servlet with name Faces servlet, which I guess does his job well. And now let's go to the filters. These are just some encoding filters which application will use. No more info you need to know about that. And the last one field which is also filter, yeah, and that is a Spring security filter, which we will add later when we will starting to use the Spring security. Just do not want to introduce the additional issues if we will have some problems. So let's leave comment here that we will add the additional Spring filters, Spring security filters later when required. Okay, let's save this file and go to the next one, and the next one will be the one we pointed in the config location parameter. So this copy it and you can now save the web XML file and close it. In the same folder webinf, we create the new XML file and paste the name of our application context XML we just copied with a basic template. Click finish, and now we have our application context XML, which is empty. And let's put the basic XML namespaces in it, and that will be beans with some namespaces. And where's our closing tag? And here's our close tag. So we will be putting here all the bean application, all the beans we will use in our application, as well as bean configuration and Hibernate configuration, and all related configurations will be all in this file. So it will be included by special tags from the separated XML configuration file. So this file will be clean with some includes, and the rest of it will be the bean declarations for our application. And let's start, by the way, with our next file, and that will be configured via Spring Beans, and we need currently to include it in the application context and then create it. And to do that, we do open tag, which is import resource, and depending on where the particular file will be located, we type in the path to it. So we will create all configuration files in our webinf folder. So we just put the file name with the extension, and the first one will be the .data source config.xml, and let's create it right away. Copy the name, go to webinf, and create new XML file. Paste it, finish. It's also empty. And let's paste here some namespaces, which will require more. Because we will do here some transaction IP configurations as well. And let's proceed with our data source, which is the same as the database configuration. So the first one will be a bean called with ID data source, which basically will hold our connection data to the Oracle database, or MySQL, or Microsoft SQL database, whatever. If we need the something different from the Oracle database as the backend database implementation, we just substitute the date source interface implementation with the particular database vendor implementation, like MySQL date source or Microsoft SQL date source, and provide the correct connection data to them. And the Oracle date source is basically the implementation of Sun Microsystems date source interface, which defines the service methods that required to work the particular database driver with some additional and useful features like connection pooling and caching and other stuff. So we define here the bean with ID date source. For those of you who are not yet familiar with the Spring Java beans, I will provide you more details later when we will create our own Java beans, and because we will use a lot of them in our application. Just now it's enough that you know that the way of bean declaration is following. All beans have the unique ID identifier, and the Java bean class, that's basically simple Java class with some variables and methods in it. Some additional attributes here, and by defining properties we say Spring to inject these values into this class variables, which are private, with some get and set methods that are public. So okay, we'll discuss it later in more details. Just now it's just the introduction to beans. So in this bean we set the Oracle date source class variables the following values. The Oracle date source variable connection caching enabled. To true means that the Oracle date source has the variable named like this, and we set the it's a Boolean variable, and we set the value to true to it. So this is some caching functionality which I guess provide more performance like improvements. And the next three is the URL. This is a connection string to our database, which varies depending on the database implementation, whether it's the Microsoft SQL or MySQL. So always starting from the GDBC driver interface name, and then the database specific things. In our case it's Oracle, the driver vendor thin, the driver name, it's the driver's name, like Oracle thin driver, and the connection host like if we have the database on our local machine, then local host port and the service name, kind of listener, and of course username and password to connect it to that database. And by the way, there's an Apache generic basic Oracle date source implementations which are suitable for all of the databases, and you do not have to provide the exact date source implementation, just enough if you're using a generic one. And in those cases you will need to provide additional property, which is a driver class property with the database vendor specific implementation of driver. So let's go to the next bean, and that will be our entity manager. And from this point we are connecting our date source with the Hibernate by providing the reference to the date source bean here. Here's the ID, and we provide the it as a reference to the date source property in this class, local container entity manager factory bean. So in Spring World language we just say we inject this dependency in this class variable. So this is called Spring injection. We just have provided the date source to the entity manager factory bean, and another one property with name Java persistence IP, the GPA vendor adapter, and inject into that property another bean, but in some different way. We could define this bean like data source with the unique ID, or we can just put the value inside property tags, and this bean will be injected. So it hasn't unique ID. Even if it has not a unique ID. And here we just say that we want to use the Hibernate GPA implementation as the most popular today, and of course you can use some different GPA implementations. In our case we're using Hibernate, and set to that Hibernate GPA vendor adapter class the following properties with following values. So we configure the show SQL property in that class with the value true. That means that every SQL operation Hibernate will make to the database will be logged into our console, so that we need what Hibernate actually doing right now and what queries it has executed in the database. So that's very convenient in the development mode, so it can be disabled later when the application goes to production. This have no clue what this actually does, and the database platform variable holds the dialect which actually to use when communicating with the database. So if even Hibernate can work with most of the database vendors, still we are required to say which dialect we want to use, because different database uses some specific SQL features and specific data structures, even if they all use structured query language. So you now know that Hibernate dialect package holds all the required dialects to work with the different databases. So we have configured our data source with the entity manager, and the next thing we need to configure is the transactions, because all enterprise applications use the transactions to make atomic operations on the very important data, which prevents the corruption of data when some concurrent threads access to the data. We'll also use transactions in our application, and that's done by the special annotations like transactional and other, using which we will annotate the required methods or classes. And to understand what transaction means, we can just imagine the simple case when financial transaction is made from the one bank to the another one. So let's say we want to send the $100 to the another account holder. So imagine the account holder that want to make the payment to the another account holder. So he initiates the payment transaction, and for $100, and those are taken from his balance off, so he loses $100 in his balance, and another account holder received that $100, and his balance is increased by $100. These two operations, actually there's a lot of operations in the middle of that transaction, but let's say we have two operations, and these two operations are separate. So the first query to database, which changes the available balance amount on the first account, and the second query in the another banking system, which performs the changing the balance amount in the way of increasing it. So let's say if the first operation were successful, and the second operation went wrong and introduced some exceptions in it. If we were not using transaction, then imagine what will happen. These $100 will be lost somewhere forever. Nor the first account holder have them, and nor the second account holder will receive them. So to handle that cases, we use transactions to execute all these transactions as an atomic operation, so that if the first query on the first account were successful, and the second one were failed. Then the all transaction will be rolled back to the starting to the point where it started. So the account number 2 will not receive these 100 bucks, and the account number 1 will not lose that 100 bucks because transactions were cancelled, rollbacked. And of course, particular event signalizing about the problem will be logged in the some logging book, and then investigated why this happened and fixed as soon as possible. So now you know that transactions are used to prevent the data corruption. So it is especially important in such operations as the bank transfers and let's say all related operations that are dealing with the money. So let's proceed with the transaction configuration, and we do the configuration by defining the bean called transaction manager, which is the Spring Framework managed GPA transaction manager, and pass to it the reference to our date source as well as entity manager defined here above. Yet we have to configure another things with transactions. That's not enough, but yeah, you probably noticed that in these cases we pass the value using the value attribute, and here we pass the reference to actual B. So here we pass the value, which is true or false, on or another string. You see the Eclipse provides some description that we almost always we pass in the Spring properties the string values, and then it's converted to some integer or boolean or whatever. So but in these cases where we use the ref attribute, we pass the reference to the bean and not the value. So we pass a lot complex data structure comparing to the simple string value. So let's go forward and configure our transactions. The next thing we want to configure is tell the that we want to manage transactions using annotations, and we do it that way with the tag annotation driven and passing the transaction manager to it. So from this point we can use annotations to manage our transactions. And the last one, another bean, which is this one, which is I guess something important, yet I can't say more in details what does it mean. But as I said previously, you do not have to know everything about these configurations, just enough if they work fine for you. So okay, we have done with our date source configuration. Remember that we do not have database at the moment installed, or maybe you have, then you can create some Oracle schema and type here the correct user and password variables. So we will I will install the Oracle database later in this video. So just by now this some default data. Okay, let's save the date source configuration and proceed with the Webflow configuration. let's close the date source configuration, and here we will add another import, and this time the configuration file will be named as webflow config.xml, and of course we want to create that. Copy the name, and in the same folder create new XML file. And we have the another file in which we will have to put some configuration beans. The first thing is the namespaces, as you know, and a lot of them is here. No explanation. You do not. Oh my God! You do not need explanation. That's basic XML namespaces. All of this stuff, of course, will be available on the Subversion repository, so that you can just copy paste it. Yeah, you do not need to type it manually. Okay. Here we should define some listener beans, like this one, which is GPA Flow execution listener, to which constructor we pass our entity manager factory and transaction manager we created previously. I guess this configuration will be responsible to handle the persistence during our journey through the Webflow flows. Yeah. Let's go next. Just another listener bean, and now we want to define the flow executor with references to these our two listeners. And by the way, you do not have to order this like this, for example, first listeners and only then flow executor. No, you do not have to do that way. You can define listeners after the flow executor, or even in the another file, so it will be okay. It will be handled by the Spring context. And the flow executor is basically the service that will execute the web flows and drive them. So we'll need also create the flow registry where all our created web flows will be registered, and the Spring Webflow engine will know about existence of them. And here's coming our flow registry, and it's looking very nice. ID flow registry, then the Faces flow builder services, which is not defined yet. We'll define it later. And the base path where our flows will be located, and we say the Spring Webflow where to search for them, and that will be web in flows. And the pattern that will be used to name our flows, and will be this one. Our flows folder will contain the folder with named as our flow, and then the exact flow definition, starting from some flow name and ending with flow.xml. You will understand it when we'll start to create our flows. So by now, let's create this folder so that we do not forget it. So we see the webin flows. Let's copy just folder name and create here new folder. Name it flows. Finish. Okay. we can go forward. Later we will create some example flow. Just let's finish the configuration. And as I promised, we define these flow builder services and set the development attribute value true, so that it helps us to debug our flows and such stuff. Okay, let's go next. Define some another beans. Don't ask what they mean exactly. Here we just give the reference to our flow registry, and that's a kinda flow handler mapping. Okay, let's go next. And the next one will be the bean JSF flow handler adapter, to which property we pass our flow executor. Don't drill inside this too deeply. You do not have to understand this all, because this will work, and when you require the to change it, then you will Google some information on it and found explanation, and I hope you will understand. So let's go next. Another configuration that points to that, something related to the Facelets, which is basically our Java server faces in conjunction with Facelets, and few variables set here, like prefix, suffix, and yet another place where we define this X HTML extension, which will hold our JSF content. And another configuration. Don't know what this means. Okay, I think we're done with the Webflow configuration. Now let's proceed with the another one. This one we will save and close. Application context, you can save and close also. We'll add the additional import here when we will use the and configure the Spring security. By now just leave these two and close application context. So what we require here, yet we are missing some faces config here, so let's create another configuration file. And give name to it faces config.xml. And here I paste in the namespaces with one single configuration, and that is expression language configuration for Java server faces. Save that file and done with it. Let's close it and see that icon has been changed to something more beautiful, and the coffee bean means that it has some bean configuration inside that XML file. We'll create one new additional configuration file later on in the webin folder, and that will be security, Spring security configuration. Right now we skip that because we are not going to use right now the Spring security. The next thing we will do is logging configuration, so that we can open our Eclipse console and see the exceptions and errors introduced by our configuration and so on. So to do that, we go to the we close these all folders and go to the resources folder. It's empty right now, and inside that we create the file called just a general file, and give the name to that log for Java dot properties. Finish. Inside that I paste some common configuration for logging, which will help us to debug and see the error messages in our standard out console. So this means this command just says all that direct log messages to standard out. So save that file, and we see that all the transaction, bindings, Webflow, Hibernate, and all Spring framework messages will be directed to the standard out, so that we see what are going there. So close that. Another file we require to create in the resources folder is the persistence context file, but that should be inside the another folder which we'll create right now in the resources folder, and the name of that folder is meta inf, and inside that folder we create new file which is XML file, and give the name to that persistence.xml file. Okay, finish. Into this file I paste in some common namespace configuration that looks like that, and this file is required by Hibernate, which will contain name of the classes that are subjects for object relational mapping. We'll see this in more details later when we will create our own entities and ask Hibernate to persist it to the database. It's called object relational mapping. So by this file we get Hibernate to know that what classes are able to persist, are persistent. So save this file. It's okay that we do not have any classes right now, just our application will not start without this file, so we create it in advance. Save this file and close it, and we see that icon changed to some object relational mapping icon. And now I think that we are ready to give some test shot to our application. But before that we need to create some flow to test with, and some Java Server Faces pages. Okay, we'll do it right now. Just another interesting thing about Spring configuration is the Spring elements, which are now empty, and that's because we didn't tell the Spring plugin about the existence of those all of those configuration files, and we will do it right now so that it will be convenient to access them and debug them. So click right click, properties. Here here are some validator configurations with which will leave default. So the Spring plugins will validate the beans and webflows and other things not so important. And we need open the bean support option, and here we add the Spring configuration files to our Spring elements. So click add, go down and open the source folder, main, web app, webinf, and select only those with the coffee bean, so that webxml is not Spring related file, as well as faces config. So just these three, and later will be the security as well. Select that, click OK, and here these added. Check the enable support for import element and configuration files, so that we do not receive any warnings from Spring plugins about these import tags. And OK, click OK. And if we open now Spring Elements, we see that we have beans folder in that, and if we open, we see our configuration files here, and can expand and see exact beans inside. And another interesting things, transaction manager, and okay, webflow configuration, so that sometimes helps us. It's okay that this icon shows that some warnings are inside, because we just can't get rid of all of warnings. We can do only one thing to avoid this, is create the config set that that will make these files aware of existence of each other. So we just create new config set and give the name to that config, and select all these three configuration files in that config, click OK, and here's our configuration set. Click OK, and we got rid of the warnings, so that's very nice. Hope we will not introduce new ones. So if we open, then another option is config, which will do the same as these three. Okay, let's go forward. Now you see that folders and files are marked with some letters, that for our convenience, that shows which folders contain some Spring related configurations and Spring beans, and which folders and which files as well contain. And we see that web app contains some Spring related files, and here's the Spring managed configuration files, and as well as it will also give the letters to the files related to flows with the F letter instead of S. Okay, and yeah, another folder we want to I'm sorry, yeah, folder we want to create in the web app folder is the folder that will contain our CSS files, cascade style sheets, and let's create it so that we don't forget it, and give the name you want. I'll name it CSS. Okay, that is done, and let's create the Webflow we wanna run the test with. So here's our folder flows, and we wanna create the folder inside flows folder with and give that folder name of our flow, and let's say this will be our main flow. So type in main, because we remember the pattern we gave to our configuration that flows will be stored in the exact structure. Here you see the folder with flow name, then the flow XML definition, and inside the main folder we create new Webflow definition file. The Eclipse will help with that, and we see the Spring Webflow definition file. Click that, next, and type in the flow name, which is our main, and dash remember the pattern flow.xml, and uncheck the second checkbox because we already have the Spring nature for our project. Click next, type in the flow ID, which is also main, and no actions are required to do here. Click finish, and our first flow are created. So you see the icon of XML file changed to some gear, and our folder is signed by the F letter, and inside we see our flow file with F, and it's already been added to the Spring elements. You see the Webflow subfolder here now, and if you open, you see all of your flows here. Fine. Now we'll define one single view state and give the unique ID. The view state means, actually is basically that this is view that currently application user or client, whatever, see in the current moment. So if you have the many view states, that is those points when client sees some picture, some user interface changes in his browser. Probably you can read some documentation here. Yeah, you see that a state where the user participates. When a view state is entered, the flow pauses and control goes to the user. So this is more precise and detailed description after some think time, the user assumed this flow and the view state by signaling an event. So you can read this, very interesting. And with the ID we specify the view which we want to show the client. So let's type in something here like welcome, and this name will require to create a XHTML view file with the Java server faces inside, exact with that name in Flow, our main Flow folder, so that it can be showed to the client. So by now we just save this file, and as I said in one of the first videos, that the Spring plugins give us opportunity to manage flows in some user interface, and as well as draw flows in some diagrams interface. So if you find it convenient, then you can try this approach. I just prefer to edit the source file. But here we can do everything we can do in the source file. Create some view states and subflows as well, and some decision states, and link all those. Actually never used it, but might be quite useful for some. And of course it edits source file automatically. We see some changes in our XML file. So okay, let's close our main Flow XML definition and create inside the same folder the view with name welcome, main folder, new file, HTML, new file, HTML file, click next, and give the name to that, not just HTML, but as we remember our configuration, we use XHTML extension, and that is a convention for Java server faces and Spring Webflow. So you should keep these extensions correct. Click next. Here we choose the template as we use the XHTML. Then we choose one of these, and I prefer always to use transitional. Okay, click finish. Here's our welcome XHTML. Though it will have has slightly different content in it, so we can delete the rest of the content and just keep the XML version and encoding, and also keep the doc type. A little change to our doc type, which will be not HTML but doc type composition. And the next I will paste in some Facelet composition with some namespaces, and you see here many namespaces like facelets with the UI tag which we'll use in our composition, like here. GSF, HTML, GSF core, and here's the first place where we attach our GSF implementation, PrimeFaces. To use PrimeFaces, we'll use the P tag and something called template. That's kind of file. We'll create this folder and this file as well. That's has content inside which is common for all web application or some part of web application. That's shared between flows. For example, that's menu bars, some headers and footers. So if the different flows point to the same general template, then this all inside this general template will be shared between those flows. We will use it in more details later when we will create our flows and user interface, so you see how it works. Just now it's enough that you know what it is. In this file you can use the HTML as well as Java server faces, and you can use all of these additional features inside this file. So let's save this file and create our template, which will be inside the webin folder. Copy the templates and here's our webin folder. Inside that we create new folder called templates, and then we create the general XHTML file inside that templates folder. Here's our file. Delete this and I paste it here, the same as is in our previous XHTML file. The same namespaces, except you see that no template here because we are editing that template itself. And just some additional content type declaration text HTML and our closing tags. Fine. Save it. And because this template is common for all our web application flows, then it should contain the head and body, which is the part of all HTML pages that's displaying in the web browser. And we do it inside this GSF tag, and it looks like we use GSF. We create these tags using GSF HTML with this prefix. You see, this is here. This we use it, and that's GSF HTML, and the same way body. So let's organize it. And let's put inside the head tag some common things for HTML pages, like content type and title. Currently we do not have autocomplete feature for GSF code, and we must know precisely what we want to do and type the tags correct way. But I'm sure this can be resolved with some additional Eclipse plugins, so probably we'll require it later for our convenience. And inside title we put something interesting in, and that is open tag UI insert, create attribute name, and let's close this. In the name you can put any value you want, but it's good practice to put the same value from the tag name. And what does it mean? This is by this we want to say that we can insert the title from any flow we want by referencing this name. It's like an include from some flow, because this is our common general template. You will see how it works, and the same we do in the body. Copy the UI insert and name this as body. That's temporary, later we will change it. And to see if our configuration works, we just will put in body before UI insert some heading, and type here something we will recognize. Let's say Webflow Facelets plus, and the rest of our test string will be inserted through this insert tag from the flow we will access. Save that, and let's go back to our welcome view, and here we want to reference this insert name title, and to do that we type in UI define name, this one, and inside that we put something, some title. And we can do it many ways. We can just type in something or use the Java Surface HTML output capabilities like H output text value and close tag, and here we put something like main flow, and you see we use this prefix. That means that we use JSF HTML, and that's basically outputs this string we typed in here. So the next thing we want is the same define, just for another our insert, and that is name body. And here we do the same and just output something different. And as we typed in here, we typed in Webflow and Facelets plus, and here we will type let's do it in the heading tags. And put here JSF works great and save it. And okay, that will be our test case. We can close now these two views. And yet another thing we were required to do is make the GSP page redirect to the our flow, which is created with some views inside and templates. Let's open it and find the head tag, body head, and delete all that stuff inside. Leave body empty, and here we type in meta http equiv equals refresh content will be following in 0 seconds to the URL. Remember our application / main flow, and close that. Okay, managed to make GSP redirect on the first access to our entry point to the Webflow application. Close that, and before we run our test case, just to ensure that we have Java runtime environment JDK instead of J2EE. To do that, we go to the execution environment and see that here's JDK, and that's okay, that's correct. And I think that we are ready to run our test execution. We have created flow, we have created the configuration beans, all is included, and then persistence log, yeah. Okay, everything looks fine. Let's try to compile this and then run on this server. Compile. Completed successfully. And let's see how our web application looks in the target folder. Here's our packaged version, and here's unpackaged. Open it, we see that all looks pretty similar, except webin folder, which now contains all the configurations, web XML and all other stuffs, as well as template libraries included, flows, and in classes we have the logging options and persistence XML. So now it's much heavier and configured. So let's try to start and see what happens. Hope there were no big exceptions. Let's start server, and now you will see that a lot of frameworks will come into play. Spring frameworks and Webflow, and that will be all seen in the log console. So our today's configuration should make all those libraries work together and give us the powerful platform. So okay, start the server, and let's see what it's here. What is right to the our console. I think there were exception. Let's see what's here. Oh my god. Okay. Let's investigate this exception. We see that our Facelets engine was started successfully. Then some connection exception, and you see that the network adapter could not establish the connection, and a long exception. Here's a Hibernate, Stack Trace, Spring Framework, and all our libraries now place. And then our flow definitions were read from the registry, and you see that one flow we had now here. Our console showed that it was registered successfully under the ID main, and some another listeners joined. Okay, and we see that some additional data, and here we see information that we are running PrimeFaces 3.4, and otherwise looks good. Let's just hope that that exception, which is related to the database connection, will not affect our application at currently. So we do not have database in the moment, so it should work without the database, just the connection warning. If not, then we will have to deal with it and fix it. Okay, let's try our application in the web browser. Open the web browser. And our application was like this, and if I'm correct, then when I hit enter to this, I will be redirected to the our main flow, which is which will be processed by the Spring Webflow and other Spring and JSF libraries. So give it a try, and we get the exception. And let's see what's here. Work Spring Framework Webflow execution. Flow execution exception thrown in state. Welcome of flow main. Okay. Go down. And here we see something, some kind of parsing exception, and it's related to the. Oh, okay. Now it's clear. I used these braces inside the value attribute, so it seems that it's not allowed there. So I'll just will go back to my Eclipse, and here you see that all you do in the application, all the configured in the our log4Java file will be logged into the Eclipse console. So the same exception we should see here. The same as here. see that this is the same exception. Okay, and let's go to our main flow and fix that. And by the way, let's try to put this in the end and try this way. Okay, save it. Let's try without the restart. We'll see, maybe this will work fine. And again to the root application, click enter and redirection to our flow. It seems that restart is required, so let's just try restart the server. And let's see if it now works. Redirect. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I forgot to recompile our project. So go back to Eclipse and just additionally run the recompilation. Yeah, this time the server should be stopped. I think it stopped. And try again. Now it's successful, and let's try again to start our server. Okay guys, I've made a small pause and have managed to resolve this exception, and this was the root cause of it was the bug introduced in 2.3 version of Webflow, and here's the Jira describing the bug, the same as ours. So make sure you just change the version of Webflow library in our POM XML file. So let's find the Webflow, and you see it here. I have already changed it, so this before the version was 2.3.0, and just change the version of these two libraries, PrimeFaces and Spring Webflow, from 2.30 to 2.31, and rebuild your project, and that would fix this bug. Okay, then this bug is fixed and we are ready to test our test case. So let's stop the server. Rebuild, recompile the application. try to start the server. And go to the browser and execute the application root, and we will be redirected to the main flow and see what happens then. Click OK, and congratulations, all works fine. Now you see that Webflow worked great. We were redirected to the Webflow entry point, and you see this URL string has changed with some execution parameters, and that means that Webflow engine works and it resolves the URL strings, so that you do not have to worry about the URL strings, which one will point to the another page, and so on. So this is all URL related things will be handled by Webflow. So it will print here some parameters it requires for successful execution, and takes the management for responsible for URL strings. So the Facelets also works because these two messages divided by plus sign are provided by the template and Webflow current flow view cooperation, and JSF also works because of we used the JSF special tags to output these text. So all is working very good, and we can move forward. And yeah, the title were injected successfully as well. So let's look at our console, and we see that no more exceptions here, just straightforward execution. We see that main flow were requested, launched, and many interesting things happens here. And here we can see that our welcome XHTML was rendered. Okay, and the last thing I will do is I will comment these all changes to the Google repository so that you can copy paste it and do not have to type it manually. So let's start this stop this server, and okay, team commit, and framework configs. Okay, framework configuration, and let's see what's here and what we need, what we do not need. Okay, from the very beginning, these two are not required. Form file, I have changed, made some changes, so it's required for Java. Okay, 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 fine. Let's commit. And now you can browse the code on the repository and probably check out in your Eclipse. If you remember, this is this one. Here is the revision 4, the commit that I've just made, framework configuration, and all changes are inside. All the modified and new files are listed here, and you just can browse. XML source, no Java files, and here's log for Java, persistence XML, webinf, all configuration files can open and copy it. So fine. So guys, see you next time when we will install our Oracle database and create the user interface for our application, and maybe a lot more.